welcome back to Shut the Smut Up. Ooh.
I liked that one.
Yeah, we did good.
So on today's episode, what are we talking about, Car?
A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. Excuse me.
I really like this quote on the back. It says, "Her fate is inked in her blood. It's carved in her bones. The power is Freya's destiny."
You said power, so I tried to say power.
I apologize.
No, it's fine. Guys, this book, I'm sure you've seen it all over. Like, the hype
is real.
It is. Like
this is a great beautiful TikTok book. Like,
this lived up.
This lived up to the TikTok hype.
Yeah. I teetered back and forth between giving this a 4 and a 4.5, and I think because I have such high expectations for the next book, I gave it a 4.
So I did give
that being said, I still loved it.
No, yeah, and I really enjoyed this book. It was quick. It was just easy to read.
It was so easy to read. The characters are fantastic. I actually really enjoy the Norse mythology. I thought that was very interesting.
And I agree with you on that. So I did give it a 4-star as well. And I think there is a reasoning behind the way I gave it a 4-star. Not only because the next book is going to be fantastic.
They're because of the way it ended. Holy cow.
Yeah, the ending was just like, pow. But I just feel like I wanted a little more banter and a little more like that tension build up to the romance between Freya and Bjorn.
Yeah.
I just feel like we didn't get that.
Yeah.
That I wanted.
I think I enjoyed it maybe just a teensy bit more than you. So I guess maybe I would be like a 4 point. What would that be? Like
4.25.
Yeah.
So
but it was great. I feel like there was some scenes that like I understand. Like I thought that the banter was pretty funny. Like
she's witty as shit.
Yeah, she's got like a
comeback for anything.
Yeah. Like, and I love that. I'm a sucker for like an FMC that's just like got a sharp ass tongue and will tell you what's what. Especially back in the day and age when women weren't like that. They were more meek and mild. They were expected.
They had to be in a sense. They had to be that housewife that
they weren't part of the Raider
rules and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it was just like one thing that like when I really first started reading this book, I laughed. It made me laugh, and I don't know if maybe as a man, like, it probably wasn't as funny as you, but I do just want to read, like, the first paragraph that kind of, like, wrapped, like,
that sucked you in. Yeah. Sometimes it's that first paragraph that's all you need.
I know. And to me, like, it just kind of made me giggle a little bit, and I just was like, oh, I cannot wait to read this book. So she says, "My mother taught me many skills to ensure I'd make a good wife to my husband. How to cook and clean, how to weave and sew, where to hunt and gather. She'd have been better off teaching me the restraint needed not to stab said husband when he proved himself a short-witted drunkard with an acid tongue." And I was like, oh, damn.
Sold.
Yeah.
And I actually think that my part that sold me in is when she's cleaning the fish and trying to save them. And
Bjorn pops out of the water.
This man just like is coming out of the water.
Yeah.
Like Aquaman, right? Giving me that Aquaman vibes. And she's throwing the fish and
she just whacks him. And I was like, okay, but that was like the second that I was just like, stop it. Like it just like was like the cherry on top for me. You don't even care that she's married.
Yeah, you're right like, there. You're wanting
man coming out onto the beach.
You're wanting the affair. You're like husband who?
Yeah. Like
husband
get rid of this guy.
You're like, I want the waterman. So I really just found that was the part where that kind of sucked me in, as well as finding out their powers. Because right off the bat, you find out Bjorn can call a fire axe.
Yes.
He's been touched by that type of god. I'm not sure who it is, but I apologize.
I think it's like Tyrion or something. Something like it's a T.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Well, and then you find out that Freya also has powers, which was like
by him.
Yeah. Which was fantastic. Like, and just like, I mean, there was a little bit of banter, probably not as much as you would have liked.
I just wanted that more that build up tension between the two, between Freya and Bjorn, just to make them fall in love. You know what I mean? Instead of just dropping and being in love.
I do feel like you expected more of that, just because they have some forced proximity within this book.
Correct.
That they're kind of forced together because there's some sort of like a seer says something along that.
It was his mother.
Yeah, his mother, like, the fate ties in with hers, like, but she's also, like, unfated, if that makes sense. And so it's her fate's not yet written, but there are things that could happen depending on which way she goes.
And I do see that forced
proximity.
Proximity, thank you.
You're welcome.
Because she is marrying his dad.
Yeah.
Right? So
I mean,
that's her stepson, in a sense.
Yeah. So, real quick, like, she starts out the book married, right? Well, one of her interactions with Bjorn, she literally grabs his axe and buries it and throws it at her husband. And so within this is all within like the first couple chapters. And to me, after reading that first little thing, she meets Bjorn, you're like, yes, you like love that she killed him.
Oh yeah, like how she just like that she grabbed his axe and just chucked it at her husband.
And because I was like,
she knew that
because he tried to sell her.
Yeah,
he didn't think she was a good wife because she couldn't get pregnant, and lo and behold, she's over here using lemon juice, being like, I am not having your baby.
Yep. A little how.
I love it.
But so I just wish there would have been more. Mm-hmm. But the action I feel like that we got in this book.
Yeah. And very good.
The knowledge of the Norse mythology and the Vikings.
The different gods, and
it was just all well put together.
Yeah. It was very interesting trying to pronounce different characters' names, especially if you've never, like we were talking along the lines, if you've never watched any of the Viking TV shows or anything like that, you're just not, like, it takes you a minute. So this is a book sometimes that you want to kind of Google Translate it, just so that you can, like, have a pronunciation guide, just so you kind of know, because it is a little bit different to pronounce. But once you do, like, it does, you know what I mean? It flows a little bit better once you say it a couple hundred times.
You're correct, like Bjorn.
Yeah.
And then you have his father, and his father has probably, this has nothing to do with the writer, but he's got the worst fucking name.
What is it?
Fucking Snorri. Snorri. And I feel like it's a Teletubby or like Winnie the Pooh for like.
And then his wife's name, it's like Yolva? No.
Like see, Volva?
I said Yolva, but I think it's like Yelva?
Lava? Luva?
So it's like hard because when you read something like this, like you just flow through it. You're like, man, I have no idea.
You make up your own names.
You do, but it's also like that's a part of the fun of reading.
I think what I said was Yalva. Yeah, Yalva.
It's like you automatically add a little vowel in there,
a little spice to it.
But yeah, and you kind of like hate her, and there's some tension in there between them and everything. But I remember because when we're reading books together, you had gotten Arc of this, correct?
Correct.
So I mean, I obviously have read it after you, but we like to discuss books as we're reading, and I knocked this out. I read it in a day. It was like I had a day off, and I just cruised. And after being in a book slump, some of the stuff that Dallas has been like, read this, I'm like, this is awesome. You were kind of telling me that it like gave you a little bit of Lord of the Rings vibes.
Correct.
And I totally was like, oh my gosh, it does. Like when they're like, or like The Hobbit, like when they're going under the mountain or doing like things like that. Like there was some interesting, good like fighting scenes.
And I agree with that. It does give me like the Return of the King, Lord of the Rings vibe, mm-hmm. right? Because when they're going into the mountain to get the ghosts and stuff like that, like. Because in the book, Freya is fated. There's a prophecy about her and she's been chosen by not just Helm, I feel like, but by all the fucking gods. Like
and they all show up and people see them. And
so they're going to the top of this mountain to contact the gods to see like what is going on.
And they're like have different, and I believe they're called Jarls. We could be wrong, but it's Jarl. Yeah. But all these different people are coming after her because they don't want this King Snorri to be king. And he's trying to like control Freya the whole book, and you just are like waiting. You're like, can you just kill him off at some point?
And I agree with that. So when they're going to the top of the mountain, the Lord of the Ring vibes that I got was there's creatures in there, like they're men, right? That have been
like
cursed
undead.
That have been cursed to this mountain, and Bjorn and
a human
Freya,
weapon cannot kill them.
Nope.
It has to be a god-touched weapon.
Correct.
And so it was interesting because you find out how well they work together as well when they're under there.
Correct, because she's the shield maiden. She can only protect herself and anybody else that she has contact with.
Yeah, and so Bjorn kind of puts her in these situations a little bit to see how far her powers will push to, which I really liked. I do wish we would have gotten a few more scenes of them learning, like him teaching her how to fight. I do feel like another thing is the one death we kind of got in the book was a little anticlimactic because I don't feel like we knew her very well.
No, and that was the other.
Bodo?
That was the other Jarl, right? She was.
Yeah, she was a female.
Yeah.
And So I almost wanted like some more in-depth things with certain little aspects of their life. But there is like a few funny things. Like one time when they're training, like when he pulls her into the water, like there's a few little banterish things.
Yeah.
But it gets pretty serious though.
There's a couple romantic things between them. Obviously, there's not the tug and pull that I wanted, but there is where she's married to his father, but she wants him, and
they keep pushing them together, and it's like forbidden. And
they're like, no, we can't. Like, so.
Yeah, and she's just very quick-witted and smart, and it's just like you can tell he just like loved her from the beginning because he was like, woman, you are different than like most
women, correct?
Yeah.
So,
but it was great. Like I felt like the storyline was fantastic. It set up the ending like so well. There was one little part in the book where I was a little confused.
Where?
It's when Bodil ends up dying and she just like loses it, and all of a sudden she sees red, and there's red in her eyes. And at first I was confused. It does get explained. Not that I want to ruin that part because it's a pretty big thing, but I was like, wait, what's happening? Because I felt like she was all of a sudden kind of a different person.
So you gotta think it kind of. Well, so when you're touched by a god, you get blessed with like some kind of a tattoo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Freya doesn't have this tattoo, and so Bjorn and
Yova. We're just gonna say Yova. It flows off the tongue better.
Does a ritual to get her tattoo.
Yeah.
And these guys can only see what is going on while she's getting ripped open by these creatures. And they're like, what the fuck? And so at the end, her tattoo is the Shield Maiden tattoo. But it's also got that red. And yeah, she's got two tattoos. There's a red mixed in with that blue.
But then she's also got the one on her palm that's ripped up. Because remember, after it looks like the burned, and they think it didn't form all the way when she grabs
Bjorn's. Yeah.
Yeah, so they act like, because remember he broke the ritual circle, and so they were like, it wasn't finished. But I think it has part to do with like that.
Yeah, and I think she's touched by all the gods, honest to God. So yeah, you find out when she loses red, right? She's actually touched by, like, in a sense, like the devil in their lore. It's like the devil god in a sense, like a Hades.
Like she can curse people.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like interesting to see her. Like I feel like the tug and pull was within Freya herself. She wanted to help her family and do things, but they didn't deserve it. And Bjorn's telling her this. Why are you doing these things for these people that don't deserve
no love for you?
Yeah. And so you start to see it. Because at the first of the book, you assume that the family's like, and the way the brother acts, that he just loves her and all this stuff. But time and time again, like, people just betray her.
Correct.
And she's just kind of on her own, and she wants to do certain things. And so it's just a very interesting book going along. It's not super long, but there's a lot packed into it.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. And I would recommend this book to anybody, just because it flows so nicely.
It really does.
And Danielle has this way of captivating you in this story and making you want more, and to where the ending comes into play.
And you finally are getting some of the things that you're wanting.
Correct. You're getting like
you got some more spice and yeah.
Like Bjorn and Freya are finally coming into each other. Like, we want to be with each other.
But then you get to the end of the book and you're like, okay, something's gonna happen.
Well, the ball has to drop.
Yeah, and you're like, there's not very many pages left. What's gonna go on?
The funny thing is I remember you right out the gate being like, he's gonna betray her. Bjorn's gonna betray her. I don't
know why I felt that way, but I just
called it. You freaking called it, and I loved it because you're like, well, is that what happens? And I'm like, well, I have to find out.
But I just got this vibe for some reason that I was like, oh, like, that would be such a good plot twist.
It was.
And then, like, but when you're reading it, you, like, love Bjorn and you kind of forget. And then it's still a surprise. I kind of love that I forget things because it is. It's so exciting to read.
So it was just very interesting.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
The way it left off, man, I need that second book now. You better hurry up so all of your readers can read this, like the second one, because I'm gonna call it right now. Like, I mean, we both said I really have high expectations of this next book. I want to know what's going down.
And I agree with that. Like, honestly, sorry, I'm trying to win Taylor Swift tickets.
You and your T Swift fandom.
I'm sorry. Anyways, yes. So I think in book 2, one of my predictions is that Freya and Bjorn are going to. She's going to be like, "You betrayed me," but I feel like it's going to bring them even closer because she's.
I want them to fight a little, like
into a new land that she's never been.
Yeah, it's like Nordland or something.
Yeah, so it's just going to be so
Which
interesting.
is where Bjorn grew up.
Yeah, because he was sent there, correct, by his father.
No, he got taken. He was stolen away, and so then he was raised. They raised him as his own,
and then he came back, and yeah.
So it's like this whole thing that, and like they knew somebody was betraying them quite a few times, but she thinks that it's Snorri's wife Ylva, and so
and it leads it that like in her direction. And then you just. I don't know, just as a reader, you've read things like this, and you're like it's
not lining up, something's going on. But also at the same time, then there's another plot twist at the end. Because remember, she sees some sort of like specter or whatever, and they keep saying that it's his mom that's passed. Correct. And all this stuff. And then you get to the end and learn all these things, and Bjorn literally got to the point where he tried to take her away. He wasn't even going to take her back to Nordland. Yeah. But
he wanted to run away together.
Is it King Gerald? What's his name? I can't remember. The other, like, the actual king of Nordland or whatever ends up finding them, and they're like in a cave, and he like breaks down their love nest or whatever, and you're like, no.
Yeah, because he went into the place that his mom and him. Yeah,
it was like sentimental, and like they literally were gonna pretend they were dead.
Yep.
And he was gonna take her away.
And she feels the betrayal, which will lead into book 2.
But I love a gut-wrenching book. I want the betrayal, and
I agree, and I want like that angst.
Yeah, like, to me. Because then I feel like it makes
the sex is going to be so good. In book 2.
Know, but it like makes the sweet parts that much sweeter. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, there's a little sprinkle of some crumbs and some spice in this book that you're like, come on, like, and then you kind of got, and then you were good. You got to the end, and she did it for you. But I feel like the plot line, like once you got to that end, like
the build up, man.
Yeah, lots of build up. But overall, like I do feel like it was a freaking fantastic book and totally worth the hype.
I would agree 100%, and I just think she hit it out of the park with this one.
Yeah. Yep. So it was fantastic. All right, I think we've wrapped up most everything that we wanted to say. Sometimes we have to try to be short and sweet because we get a rambling.
We do.
We do that quite often, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are.
Yeah, depending on if you like it or not.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, bye guys. Thanks.